Hello and welcome. Thanks everyone so much for joining me today. I know everyone's schedules are very hectic and busy, but I do appreciate everybody that did spend some time with me to go through today's webinar. Today's webinar is going to be choosing the best functional safety and cybersecurity certification path. Quick slides about myself and the company, and we'll get right in today's presentation. I see it going maybe around 35, 45 minutes long. Okay, I am a program development compliance where we had little black boxes that could locate and track people. So it was a lot of fun. And then, long story short, 7 years ago or so, my wife and I found Exida and has really fallen in love with this company ever since. Now I get a lot of have fun. I wear a lot of different hats. I help the OEM functional safety group, the end user functional safety group. I'll help with cybersecurity, automotive, machinery, robotics, railway, you name it. I get to be a part of it somehow. So a lot of fun. Exida, we are a global company. We have offices around the world, and every little triangle you see on there, one usually pops up on a new location every single year. We're growing extremely fast. It's really exciting, but we have a lot of great team members here, regardless if it's in functional safety, alarm management, and cybersecurity. One of the reasons is that we're growing so fast is because we are a customer-focused company. We do encompass that complete life cycle in functional safety and cybersecurity. It's really nice when you're able to work with the manufacturers who are selling products and services to end users, and you also work with the end users because why? Now you get to figure out what the end users need, right? And also now in between those two are the solutions providers as well. So it's fun being able to work with all the different various groups within functional safety and cybersecurity, and I think that's why it's worked out so well for us. Another reason why things have been progressing for our organization is that we are employee owned. Many people don't realize that. So when everyone's working extremely hard, there's a reason because we all benefit when Exida benefits. And so we want to give our customers the best service we can possibly give them. We have over 100 global experts now. We have completed over 1,000 different certification projects and assessments, and now we've modeled well over 500,000 different CIFs. So it's kind of neat, but this is all we do, and we do it every single day. We do have tools which help us. We do have a tool that's globally one of the well-known tools in the industry. One of the great things with this tool is that it will help you with every single phase of the life cycle. Not only now for functional safety, but it helps you with alarm management. It'll help you with cybersecurity, and this tool keeps growing and growing. We have a whole team dedicated solely to that software, and it only improves because of our customers. They'll say, hey, you know what, I wish you could do this. And next you know, our development team's off running and doing that. And so much now that we've actually integrated with a few of the larger platform with companies out there. And so the sky's the limit really with our tools. Another thing that we've done to really help progress the industry, everything we do, we're an open book. We've published everything that we know. We have these webinars every single week. We don't charge anyone anything. We have over 30 white papers. Once again, we don't charge anyone. And the reason for that, some people are like, wow, you're missing an opportunity. And the reality is, no, we're not. The faster we can have our industry learn, the faster we can start moving on new things and really start raising the bar even higher and becoming even more efficient within cybersecurity and functional safety. This slide kind of is another one that just kind of shares it all. It just shows the progression of our company. Within 20 short years, we're now becoming the dominant provider within functional safety. In cybersecurity, everybody had the same head start, right? So cybersecurity all came out within automation for OT cybersecurity, and because we all have the same start, obviously we're so dedicated. All the other companies that we compete against, they do other things. We only do this, and that's why we're able to progress so much faster than most. So today's webinar, as everyone's well aware, we're talking about how to choose the best functional safety certification path for you. And so this is something that many people don't think about, but it's so critical when you're going through these different projects. And what I mean that is because, you know, sometimes you don't have enough time to do this work. There's other people that can help you, or maybe you're someone, or your company is someone that wants to do it all in-house. Well, hey, you know what? There's a path for you as well, and that's kind of what we want to share. And so today's agenda, we're going to go and talk about real quickly, top level, of course, what's functional safety, what's automation cybersecurity. why certification, and then I'll go through the different paths for you. And when you have questions, I'll get those answered at the end. If you have more questions you think of after the fact, don't worry. This webinar is being recorded. Everybody that's on this webinar will get a copy of these slides. And in addition, all the questions that you do ask, I will make sure I PDF them with the answers, and I'll send them back out to you so you can have all the responses to all the different types of questions from the first session and this session as well. And finally, another thing would be is I'll leave my contact information at the end of this presentation. So when you have additional questions, I'll add them to our spreadsheet, but I'll also make sure I get to those as well for you. All right, so in general, functional safety, it's the adoption of two main industry standards. You have IEC 61508 and you have IEC 61511. And these standards, they do help address the safety lifecycle and different types of failures from different faults, right? So you have functional safety. It dives into the core of the company's quality management system. It helps determine the architecture constraints, and it also determines the product or system's failure rates. We all know that within functional safety, there's always a goal, right? Your safety function. And so what it says the automatic safety function will perform the intended function correctly, or the system will fail in a predicted safe manner. And that's the goal of functional safety. If I were to talk to you 10, 20 years ago, functional safety might have been more foreign, right? But now there is such a greater awareness in this last decade or two that, we now see companies being proactive instead of reactive. And reactive is always human nature, I kind of want to say, because that's when, when the accident occurs at a reputable company site, whether it's oil and gas, automotive, the water industry, that's when people start thinking about functional safety, when that accident happens. And that's, like I said, it's human nature, and it's unfortunate that that's how things were to happen. But now as time is progressing, more competency is being generated from different companies. Now companies have their own functional safety experts within, and so people are taking that proactive approach, and it's really, really making a difference. And it doesn't even have to make a difference, which is the most common thing, which is a fatality or loss of human life. It's actually helping for monetary reasons, right? So you don't really have that loss of production as much because your products and your systems are more reliable. The environmental impacts are differencing. There's less production downtime, and so now really it comes up to what's the worth. Or what's the risk you're willing to take? Some people say, oh, I don't have the time, the budget, or the personnel to complete these jobs. Well, now, because we've progressed so much, and I'll talk about the certification paths, no matter what your reason is, there's a different path that you can take, because if you have an obstacle, we have a way to get around that obstacle. We never want an obstacle to get in the way of safety. Then when you talk about cybersecurity and automation cybersecurity, I should mention, it's the prevention of that intentional or unintentional interfaces with that proper operation of automation systems. Okay, and when I talk about operation systems, I'm talking about those industrial control systems. And another thing is when you talk about automation cybersecurity, you'll hear terms like SCADA security, PCN security, industrial automation and control system security, and etc. The one thing, though, that many don't think about, they say, oh, yeah, cybersecurity, we already have an IT department. No, this is completely different. This is OT, we call it, right? Operational technology. And we have a chart here kind of showing the differences between IT and OT. One of the biggest things is that very first one, the availability, right? IT, what? Yeah, it's okay. You can have those occasional outages. It's tolerated. OT, oh, no. If you have an outage, that is not tolerated. So many people will bend the rules so that plant does not go down. Because why? If your plant goes down, there are millions of dollars lost in most occasions. And so that's the biggest thing is, how do we have operational technology, cybersecurity preventions? What can you put in place to help protect your systems and to keep that system running? And so that's the biggest thing. And when you start talking about cybersecurity, it's not as common now, but in the past, it's always been these myths where people are like, oh no, cyber attacks they're only a concern for these big companies, or no one really wants to target my facility. I don't do anything. And you hear things like, oh, security was handled during the design process. And so you hear all these different things. I'm sure most of us have even said these different items, but they're completely myths. They're not true. Attackers don't really care who you are, what you are. They have a main target and goal, and you might just be an innocent bystander that's in the way to get them to a goal. You know, you might have a partner, a tier one company partner. Maybe you're a small mom and pop shop, but hey, guess what? You just got this huge contract. You're now partnering with a bigger company. What if there was a hacker out there that wanted to get this bigger company and they said, oh, this mom and pop shop, they don't think about cybersecurity. Let me go ahead and put a quick virus in there. I'll fish some emails over to them. They will then infect their system. Hey, guess what? I can get in on their product. They'll then deliver it to my personal target, and then all of a sudden that personal target has that bigger company now has that back door opened because of the fact that you didn't have anything in place, right? So it's not even about who you are and what you make. It's more about what are these intended people's target truly going to be, and that's an intentional one, because it's not all about intentional attacks either. Quick survey here that actually came out in 2017. It's actually progressed a lot more than this, but right now, even in 2017, it said that over half of people have experienced some type of attack in the last 2 years, and that's rather a large number. And when I talked about, yeah, there's malicious people out there that are going after different companies and industrial automation control systems. Majority of the time, though, they're unintentional, right? It's really just about maybe competency. They didn't mean to click on that link, or and even some of these phishing emails you get, they're getting sophisticated. I know I personally had one 2 weeks ago. It was from my boss, from my CEO, and it was like, hey, Ted, I said my name. In the subject, it says, please help with a meeting. And it was from Dr. William Goebel, right? And so I'm looking, I'm like, oh, wow, he needs help with a call. It says, hey, Ted, will you help me with this call? Here, click this link that gets to join the meeting, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, of course I'll help. I was like, wait, and so I went and I did my check. I went to the subject line. That looked fine. Then I went to who it was from, and it said Dr. William Goebel. But then I looked at the actual address, right? And it was a complete fish. And that link looked like a great link. It just said click here to start the meeting, right? And that's all it was. It was a fantastically written phishing email. Yeah, sure, I caught it. I marked it as fish, and I got rid of it. But man, they're getting these attacks, or these emails are getting a lot better. And so that's how unintentional things can happen. You don't mean to, it's not, but hey, people can make mistakes, people can create backdoors, and it's not like you really meant to. All right, so that was my quick rundown on functional safety and cybersecurity. All right, check. Now let's talk about why people get certifications, and then we'll go into the different paths that you can take. So before we do talk about those paths, it's really nice to understand from a functional and cyber point of view why people are doing these things. And we're going to talk about just two of them today, which is 61508, and we'll talk about 62443, right? Functional safety and cybersecurity. So let's first start with functional safety. If you're familiar with functional safety at all, you know IEC 61508 is not a small standard. And when you certify a product, we verify that product, the hardware and the software. We look at the design, we look at the safety manual, as well as the processes that are used for development, testing, configuration management, quality control. We look at over 250 different requirements when you deal with IEC 61508. Okay, and the review of that product hardware, software design, it includes the calculations of the product reliability data that's really needed for that safety system. And we usually do, or we always do, a detailed FMEDA, which is your failure mode effect diagnostic analysis, and this is constructed to determine the hardware failure rates for the different modes as well as your diagnostic coverage. And part of that certification is that we also analyze the number and type of product field returns or field failures within also an accumulated operating hours, right? So these are then compared to those failure rates in that FMEDA to make sure that the predicted compared to the actual are lining up. And that's how you get a realistic failure rate number. at a very top level approach, right? So then when we talk about what's required for certification for functional safety, there are three main obstacles. Many of you are very familiar with this, so we won't go into too much detail, but we have many webinars discussing each one of these areas. But I'll just leave you with, when you do functional safety certification, there's three things. There's a systematic capability rating, which is the measure of how well this product has development processes, and it prevents those systematic failures. The next thing is the architecture constraints for the device. This is where you measure that product strength against the random failures for reliability, and then of course you have the failure rates for the PFD average calculation of that product. And in order to hit a SIL capability rating, say you're going for a SIL 2, each one of these barriers must be met and passed through in order for you to achieve it. So if you have everything at SIL 3 except your systematic capabilities at SIL 1, you only achieve a SIL 1. And that's, I think most people understand that. Value to the certification, of course, it's, it'll help with disparity trip rates. I think that's one of the main key things why end users love this type of certification. They experience less, they have increased safety, it helps with over designing certain systems. You only have to design to the level of safety you need. So if your risk reduction factor only says you need a SIL 2, don't build a SIL 3 system, you don't need it. And same thing with the manufacturers. Now they can have lower life cycle costs. Why? Because there's less rework, there's less redesigning. They get less returns because their products are built a little more robust, and yeah, of course, some people use it for marketing and sales. So now let's look at cybersecurity certification stuff, and then of course we'll talk about the different paths here. So with IEC 62443 certification, it really had one main purpose in mind. It was what? To prevent cyber attacks. And the great thing with what this committee did, what ISA, what they also helped with IAC is that it didn't start from scratch, right? So this committee took full advantage of resources from other leading committees and standards, whether it was CERT, OWASP, SANS, etc. And what they wanted to do was build some kind of standard or certification that will help people truly fix problems at the source. And that standard is now broken up to various sections for the various types of users. And so you can see this chart here in front of you. This is a very nice picture way of looking at the standard, where you're going to hear me say, oh, 4-3 and 3-3 and 2-4 and 4-1 and 4-1. What I'm trying to say is the standard's broken up in all these different sections. So in general, the general pieces of the standard are what? IEC 62443, 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, and 1-4, right? And then you go to policies and procedures and systems and components as you go down the different tiers. And each one of these sections relates to a different type of person. And so that's what I'll tell you is, as we go to different paths, I'll say, okay, well, if you're this type of person, these are the pieces of the standard that you'll be using to get certified to. And that's the idea of this slide here. We did put together some schemes to kind of show, once again, a visual as to, okay, if it's applicable to, right, the far right column, you can say, okay, I'm a system integrator, or I'm an OEM, I need an OEM product certified, an OEM system certified. All right, you can then turn all the way to the left column and say, okay, what pieces of the standard do I need to look at to be able to do that type of certification? And oh, by the way, besides IEC, you also have ISKI, right, the ISA Standards Compliance Institute, where they also have a scheme that you can follow, and they have a set of requirements as well. And that's something else that we can help with if that's the path you want to move down. And that we have a series of questions we ask to make sure that we can get you the correct path based off of what you're truly needing as the end result. So what is IEC 62443 certification? Well, there's usually 3 steps to get certified. All right, and 3 main ones. Now, you don't have to do all of them. It all depends on what you're looking for. So the 3 common steps are: 1, you want to audit the development process used to create the product. 2, you want to perform testing, right? You want to find those vulnerabilities, see how these tests and how effective your system or your product is. And then 3, you go back to the standard, and then there's these things called security features, and you want to make sure you look at them and determine if you meet those features and if it's sufficient based off of your procedures or artifacts, etc. And then, oh, by the way, depending on even a security level, and I think I have a slide at the end here with what the security levels mean. But you can say, yeah, I want to get a process certification to a security level 2, right? And so we can do that based off of the criteria that needs to be met. And so let's first talk about this audit, or it's not the audit. Let's first talk about the development procedures here in the process. Because in the longer run, what the objective is truly going to be is people are going to start designing in cybersecurity. We already have a couple customers of ours, or potential customers of ours, that have products that literally are building in cybersecurity within these products, so that right out of the box, it's already going to have some kind of it's not but a security level capability rating, right? Which is extremely exciting, because right now what people are doing is they're not designing in cybersecurity, they're going back and adding in cybersecurity, which is okay, right? We have to start somewhere. And so as we progress, of course, cybersecurity will be something that will be on the top of our minds, and we'll be building this stuff in. If I were to recommend, I have them circled in red here. The two areas I would say you want to look at first, because I think these are more of the critical items, it would be you want to look at your security requirements, and you want to look at your security coding guidelines. Okay, and I have those there. That's kind of what I would say your starting block is if you want to spend some time looking into cybersecurity. Those are the areas that I would first start with. Okay, now let's go to the testing portion. So in the certification process, when you go through, there is testing. And so the question really becomes, what is testing? Well, there's different types and kinds of testing. You got fuzz testing, penetration testing, mal testing, storm testing, and there's a long list of tests that we have to run. And we do have special equipment that we run the tests. And currently there are, let's say, over 100 different tests. However, as we keep collecting this data, what we're noticing within Exida is that some of these tests are carrying more weight than others, and the testing may be able to become where we have these weighted items and we give them more importance. So maybe we can reduce the test size as long as the most important critical items are tested first. And so these are some things that we're looking at statistically as to what tests need to be run, what don't need to be run, and if there's different tiers that we can run based off of the results that we're seeing. And that's really a key thing to take away, is that there is a progression in cybersecurity, and it's moving very fast. And the other thing that you want to take away from this is, hey, by the way, depending on your certification, testing might not even be something you need to do to get your certification, and we'll talk on that as well. So the last part of a certification that you may not have to do, or you would have to do, right, depending on what you're going for, are these things called security features. And they're important in 62443 standard because the stronger or the higher your security level that you'd like to achieve, the more robust the requirements become, or the more requirements you have to make, right? So if you look at a security level 1, you'll see FR1 in the top left-hand corner. It's your foundational requirement. FR1 is the identification authentication control. You see security level 1, SL1, it says 10. The next one says 16. Now, that doesn't mean you just add 6 more requirements. It actually means you add 16 additional requirements. Yes, some of those 16 could piggyback off of the first 10. A quick and easy example would be, maybe SL1 says you must have a password for your system. It doesn't say it can be the default password, it doesn't have any kind of specifications, but then maybe SL2 says you must have a password for this product or system. Oh, and by the way, it needs to be 12 characters in length, uppercase, lowercase, special characters, etc. Right? And so that's how it piggybacks. It's a new requirement, but it might piggyback off of one of the first 10. Right? Get my point? So now you can see, if you go to security level 3 or 4, how much more stringent and harder it becomes to get to those levels. And so currently, I'd say right now, most companies do SL1. Some companies are doing SL2. And I don't think to hand right now anyone has achieved SL3. There are, or SL3, security level 3. There are some that are trying to. No one has completed it as of yet. And yeah, so we always say, look, we encourage everyone to at least get to SL1, and then we can move from there. Benefits, pretty self-explanatory why people are getting certification. It does build that bar, right? So now there's a standard to compare, hey, a standard meaning against others in the same industry, saying, okay, look, hey, this product is an SL1, the system's an SL1. What is this competing or what does another product or another system have, right? And so you at least have a framework or something as a starting block of how much security do you have. It does give you better cybersecurity strength. It helps reduce the time in your testing, right? With FAT and SAT. An interesting one that I saw from end users are insurance company premiums. I thought that was an interesting one where I guess insurance companies now asking people, do you have any kind of cybersecurity protection? And this type of certification is actually helping them reduce their premiums. So I thought that was kind of neat. Something I didn't think about. And then of course, why people get certifications. I mean, yeah, it's a big marketing thing where it's one of those things that, hey, I have the certification, do you? Kind of thing. But then also on the other side of it, it really does help secure and create a safer environment for functional safety and cybersecurity, because once you become a certified product or you have a certified system, you now get placed on this website and people can publicly see the work that you've done and what you've achieved. And it's another place to check that, because we've had instances of counterfeit where people just create these certificates and just tell people, yeah, it's a SIL 3 product. They'll come to this website and be like, well, it's not listed. And so it's great because we've been able to catch some people in various countries that have been falsifying their certificates. And so it's a great check to have. And everyone should be going to this website if you have anything to do with functional safety or cybersecurity. Now let's talk about the optimal paths, right? The first thing we'll do is we'll talk about functional safety, and then we'll move into cybersecurity. Functional safety is fun. And why is that? Is because there's so many options out there now. Before you didn't really have a choice. You had to go down this one path and that one path only. Now, because we've been around for 2 decades, wow, I mean, there's so much that has been learned. And so there are 3 distinct paths. I mean, we could talk about 1H and 2H and 1S, 2S, 3S, and all these things. But if we keep it at a top level approach, we'll say, look, there's 3 paths that a manufacturer can follow. You can do a design and test. You can do your design and test process, which you're fully compliant to. You can do a design and test process, which you're fully compliant to, and you can make changes. Or another one is where you just can't make changes at all. You can't do anything to that product. Once it's certified, you can't touch it. And you can see here's a fun flow chart, because before it used to be all black where, we do it all, certification, but not anymore. People are now becoming competent. We have so many more CFSCs and CFSPs out there where they can do this work. So that's fantastic. That allows us to do other things, like I said. So now we encourage manufacturers, if they want to, if they have the time, the effort, they have the personnel, they can perform these different things. They can do their own FMADA. They can do their own safety case. They can do their own project. We can just review it. Right? And so that helps save them. It's a different bucket of money. So instead of paying the certification body, you can pay your guys to do this work as long as they have the ability. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about, because anytime you do a certification, there's these key tasks, let's call them. The first thing is you want to do the procedures, right? You got to create and update those procedures. And that's usually your manufacturer procedures, quality management system, etc. The next thing that's very key to certification is what? It's the architecture review, right? You want to analyze that design. You want to do the FMEA, the HARA, the HAZOP. You want to perform these things to make sure your architecture is correct. The next thing after that is the FMEDA, right? Your failure mode effect diagnostic analysis. This is where you get those predicted failure rates. And that's when you take those predicted failures and you compare them, if you're able to actual field failures. And then the last thing is that safety case. This is what we have all of the requirements within whatever respective standard we're working on. So if it's a 61508, if it's an IEC 61511, IEC 62443, whatever that standard, this is where all the requirements get put into, and then how they meet the requirements. What's the compliance argument? And then, oh, by the way, where in the document do you have it that it can provide that justification that you meet that requirement as well, right? So it's a very cumbersome task. It's a ton of work. But hey, look, if a manufacturer wants to do it, so be it. Let's do it. Or of course, we can do it as well for you. So let's talk about these different paths. And these different ways, whether it's route 1S, 2S, 3S, like I said, we're not going to worry about all the different routes. We're going to just talk about the different paths. And the first one, like I told you, is if you have a new product and it has no field history, right? So it's brand new, it's fresh, it's a fresh idea. You build this product and now you want to get certified. Yes, it's still ways of doing it. It's one of the more stringent ways to get certified, and that's okay as long as you have a good design process. You have we have to perform a full hardware failure analysis for your random failure integrity. The next thing is you have to have a design process meet all the requirements of 61508 for whatever SIL target you're trying to achieve, right? And that helps the systematic side, so that systematic failure integrity. And then of course you'll want to have a safety manual that gets created to explain how that product is used in that safety system. And on the right hand side, you can kind of see the different reports that get generated, what type of process documentation is asked during this process. And so when I move to the next slide, you're going to see how some things get removed. Okay. And when I say removed is now another path that you could go down for functional safety is you could have a product and it's very well documented with field history, right? So you track, and you see the green arrows, you track your shipping records very well, plus you track the failure records very well. And it's so critical to do so because that's what helps us provide evidence that you have a reliable product. And so when we do the FMEDA, right, you still do that full FMEDA, nothing there changes, but now we take that FMEDA and we compare it to the results that we've received from how it's actually used in the industry, right? And so we can take those failure rates, compare them to the actual field failures. As long as they line up, you're good to go. And that means what? Now you don't have to worry about your software module test plan. You don't have to provide evidence of the software integration test plan, or you don't have to do a gap analysis if you don't want to. You don't even need a functional safety management plan. You still need your SRS, but you don't need that functional safety management plan. And so certification requirements get reduced when you have a product that you can do like a proven and use approach. Okay, you still need the safety manual, which is fine. Of course, you need that. You got to tell the end user how to use their product, but you can see it becomes a little simpler. A third path, right? Let's say you have a product out there that is very well documented with the field history. It's kind of like your legacy product, and oh, by the way, people are now starting to use it for safety systems. You kind of think to yourself because it's like, I didn't build this for safety. But what we can do is once again, if you have great shipment information, you have great failure information, and you're not going to make any changes. So you can say, hey, I want this firmware, this hardware revision. I want to lock this in. I will not make changes. If I make a change, I'll have to come back to exida, right? And you lock it in. Well, if you lock it in like that, all of a sudden, almost half of the requirements go away when we do certification. So if it's like, man, I don't have the time or effort, or look, I just need to get this out real quick. I got this huge order and I got to get it done. Well, look, even if you have a product that's been out there and you're still missing gaps, and maybe you don't have a change procedure, a modification, or an impact analysis, hey, it's okay. Why don't you certify it with no changes? Get this product out the door. Let's get it certified to a certain version history. And then, oh, by the way, in 6 months, you can come back and you can say, okay, we got more time now. Let's put together a modification and change procedure. Let's clean up some of those things so that now we can make changes to our product and not worry about losing our certification. And you can do that afterwards. And it's not a big deal. Many people don't realize that. So depending on your budget, your time, your workloads, right, we can work with you to figure out what's the best path forward for you to get this product certified, get it reliable and verified, so now you can go off in the market and create more sales and get some more happier customers, right? And you know, this was a conventional certification process. Many people just thought, hey, we're not in control of any of this. We have to go to certain people. But then we started getting, and this quote actually is what kind of brought up us having these types of discussions and thinking more about what we do, because we did have someone that came back and they told us, hey, look, it was so refreshing. We did our second certification job with you. The first one was cumbersome, right? We spent over 1,000 or 2,000 different man hours. We had to do our own FMEA, HAZOP, FMEDA. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. And then after they worked with us, they said, look, we don't want to do that again. Can we get certified, not have to do that? We need to work on our billable work. We need to make more sales. We got to make more widgets. And so that's when we did their second one. And I think they spent less than 200 hours compared to the 1,000 and 2,000 hours that they did the first time, right? And it was an eye-opening experience for them. And that was just one fun quote. I thought I'd throw something in there. No, I didn't say it verbatim, but it's on the screen. You can read what they actually said. I just summarized it. All right, so now let's talk about the paths for cybersecurity. And I hope everyone's finding this stuff useful, because I wish someone told me how to put all these paths together. But so for cybersecurity, you already saw this this slide before with the different types of schemes and different things. So whether you're an OEM making a new product, if you're a system integrator, solutions provider is another great word for that. Even if you're an OEM that has a system, there's different schemes and ways to get you certified, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. Is we'll talk about whether it's if you're looking to get a process certified, if you're looking to get a device certified, a system certified, if you are that system integrator, solutions provider, there's different paths now that you can go down, and depending on the different path, really reflects on what pieces of that standard you have to be responsible for. And oh, by the way, there's also different schemes out there, and yeah, it might get a little confusing, but hey, look, what if your customer asks for an ISKI certification? You're like, what in the world is that? I thought we just had to go through cybersecurity. No, there's a different path if you want to go down the ISA route, and then there's another path if you want to do just the IEC route. So really, we have a questionnaire. You kind of fill it out. We let you know what you need, and then you can take that off with your team and figure out what the best route is for you, and then we can help you out with that. So when we talk about the different types of certification, I'll first talk about the process certification. And this is really the first one. The first piece that most people go down is they do a process certification. You don't need to go this route. You can go straight to a product certification if you want to. But there's different two types of certifications for the process. The first one is your OEMs and your integrators. And when you want to do an OEM process certification, that we use that standard there in that middle paragraph. It's IEC 62443-4-1. The next standard that we use is for that system integrator. They actually use 2-4, IEC 62443-2-4, and that is specifically for them for the process of a certification. So as you can see, there's different pieces that you have to relate to. Now notice what I said here is that you only have to do step one of those 3 steps we talked about before. You don't have to do testing. You don't have to worry about features. If you're doing a process certification, if you're an integrator or a solution provider, 2-4 is all you need to worry about, and that's it. And so it's kind of nice. And then, of course, the robustness of that is all depending on what security level you're trying to achieve. Now, let's say you want to do a device or a product certification. All 3 process steps must be met. And that's okay, but notice that, yeah, we have to do 4-1, right, like we talked about, but also now 4-2 comes into play. And this can be done with whether it's an IEC 62443 scheme or it can be done, and I meant because you can do both, with ISKI, the ISA Security Compliance Institute. Right, so there's 2 different schemes there. They're actually very similar, but if someone is looking for both or just one, you can do that, and that is an option. That's a path you can absolutely go down, and I can share the differences with those schemes offline. So OEM system certification, that could be another path for you. If you are this OEM looking to certify a system of yours, you'll be looking at IEC 62443-4-1 and 3-3. If you're not sure what an OEM system would be, I threw it up here in this slide here. It could be your operating station, it could be a controller, a server, a network, or even network devices like switches and routers. So that's kind of what an OEM system would look like. Now, if you're an integrator or a solutions provider, this slide's for you. Notice the difference here between my slide. The main difference between my slide from an OEM system to an integrator or solution provider system is look at that first bullet point. We have it in black. It says bold. It says which may. When I say which may, I mean that integrators may not have to do testing. It could be outside their scope, and that's why we'll say, okay, what are you designing? What's the system you're putting together for your end customer? And oh, by the way, let me see if you're responsible for testing or not, and we can actually determine that, so you would not have to do any testing if it's outside of your control. Now, if you are a system integrator or a solution provider, the piece of the standard that you'll want to do, the path you'll go down, is 2-4 and 3-3. All right, and I talked about these secure levels, so I threw a quick slide in here just so that you had a reference, because you will get these slides and you can go back to these slides. Now, the important thing is, sure, we put a table. You can kind of see the skills, the motivation, the means, the resources for each security level. Let me kind of break it down a little bit more for you in my terms, right, layman terms. So there is one that people will talk about. They'll tell you security level 0. You're like, that's not a real thing. People talk about it, so we're going to talk about it. All that means is that there's no specific requirements or security protection necessary, right? It's like, yeah, Okay, I don't have security level anything. I get it. But that's the kind of definition you get. If you're an SL1, that kind of means that you have protection against your casual or more coincidental violations. If you're an SL2, that's the protection against the international violations where they kind of use those simple means. They have low resources, generic skills, low motivation, maybe some kid in his room just kind of messing around. I don't know. Then you have security level 3, where it's international violation again, and it's more sophisticated means. They have, let's say, moderate resources. You have maybe some IACS, Industrial Automation Control System, specific skills and moderate motivation, right? So their intent is to go after an industrial control system. And then you, of course, you have SL4. That's your nation state, right? This is where you have a large organization. They all have the same goal in mind. They're targeting it. They're creating chaos. And they're extremely sophisticated. They have so much resources. They have high skills. They're highly motivated. That's SL4, and that's protection against that. As you can see, that would be very hard to defend against. And that's why the requirements are so robust when you get up to that level. But most people are going after SL3. Now, when I use these guidance as well, I like to say SL1, this is kind of mitigating against all your critical issues. SL2 mitigates against your critical and your high issues. SL3 does critical, high, and medium issues. And of course, SL4 mitigates against all issues. So that's kind of my definition. I hope that was helpful. So you heard the different paths. That is our presentation. I got a couple quick training slides here, and then I'll go straight into the questions. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. I hope you enjoyed that presentation, and I'll get some questions answered here. If you need some training, right, that's part of the whole competency thing. This is what everyone is trying to do in-house, is do their own procedures and processes. Here's some trainings in front of you. If you don't find something, if you want to do something online, we have that too now. You can kind of see here where we're doing everything in-house. CS 102 actually at the bottom there, it is finished. We're in its final review. So if you did want that, we could probably make it available to you within the next week or so. We have one more show that I know about. We'll be at the Rockwell Automation Fair. Myself, Stephen Gandy, Todd Stoffer, and maybe one other may join us. We'll be there next. Holy cow, next week. We'll be there next week in Chicago. If you're going, please say hi. It'd be fun. If you want to learn more, I know this slide. People are like, oh, more marketing stuff. No, really. No, the purpose we put this here is because we give away so much stuff for free. Why not follow one of these platforms, and at least you'll get the information, right? And it's all good stuff. So I hope you like it. Okay, hey everyone, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. If you have more questions, by all means, you have my email address right here in front of you. Please send me all the emails. I'll get all these questions wrapped up. I'll get them out to a PDF for you. You will get the slides. This will be a recording. You can re-listen to it if you'd like. Thanks again. Have a great day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye for now.